Guys, thank you very much. That was a minute's silence there for the NHS. So thank you very much indeed. We'll now sort of kick off into the Love Work Life 60-minute mentor session, which this week is Analogue Recruitment, Old World of Work versus Digital Recruitment, New World of Work. We're still waiting for people to log in. There's quite a few people to log in. So we expect some people have logged in until they've observed their own minute's silence. So we'll just give a couple of people some minutes to log in as we go. Obviously, people can hear us, because people have been answering back that we can hear us. We are having a little bit of technical issues with regards to actually getting people on and allowing people to speak. So,
actually, Howard, I think I've got that sorted. I can allow people to talk on my panel, so we're going to be okay.
Brilliant. Okay, so you've got the control panel. Brilliant.
Yep.
Right, okay. So just as we're talking away, I just want to make sure everyone's fit and well and everyone's healthy and had a good week. As always, what Paul and I want to do is have a very long conversation for about an hour with regards to how the market is working, what we're seeing from the markets, and what we're doing with our current clients, and so we can help you with what you're doing. This week is the first week we're really going to start sort of laying down a roadmap of what we think you can be doing and should be doing now and in the very near future to enable your agency and yourself to sort of move forward in a really positive way. And I think to start that, what would be a really good opportunity is to start to look at what people have been doing in the past and really talk about the old the old analog way of recruitment and what we've been doing in the old analog way of recruitment. So if Paul and I just kick off, I'm interested in your views, Paul, because we've got very differing views sometimes of the old way of recruitment and how things are going. And we've obviously come from different spaces. I came from a technology space and you came from the office world. I'm very interested to see what your sort of thoughts on the old digital world of work was like. And I think that there's a lot of recruitment agencies out there that will be doing these type of things. And I always say, if the cap fits, then wear it. But then we've got to think about changing hats and what we're going to do. So the first part we want to talk about, what analog recruitment genuinely looks like now.
Okay. Well, it's a great question. I mean, we've termed it analog recruitment because, in a sense, over the last, 10, 15 years, the market has gone backwards. If I can perhaps, I know people that know me know I've been in recruitment a long time, since the mid-70s. And if I can talk about what recruitment used to feel like and be like during the 70s and 80s, it gives you a hint to the fact that in a sense, it was actually more advanced than it is today. Because when I was taken on as a junior interviewer, as a junior consultant, my role was really telephone selling. And I had to interview people walking through the door. We had 20 minutes per candidate, and I had to make, as best I could, 3 interviews whilst that individual sat next to me. And of course, I was using my power of influence. I was on the phone, calling clients and describing the candidate who was sitting within touching distance of me, and persuading, if that's the phrase, certainly influencing my clients to meet those candidates. Of course, inhibitions were something that we weren't allowed to have. So you literally had to pitch the candidate whilst they sat next to you. And this is something I've told people many times, but it happens to be the truth, that I was making something in the order of 25 to 28 permanent placements per month in those days. It will amuse people to know that the average fee was about 200 quid, and I got 5% bonus out of that. Good old days, Alfred Marks Bureau. But I would probably have been making 75 interviews a month. Then we segue into what we now see as normal, i.e. we send emails with CV attachments to clients. Why have we done that? Because clients have told us that's what they want from us. And that has dumbed down our opportunity to influence clients to meet our candidates, because we're not able to describe the candidates. The CV is, in a sense, a piece of paper with print on it. And although we as consultants do our level best to improve the quality of the CVs we send out, it is a very one-dimensional method of working. It's analog. If we're fortunate, if we've done our homework, we've worked hard at developing relationships with clients, we are able to speak to them, to follow those CVs up, to describe our candidates. But the initial foray into arranging interviews tends to be this horrible method of sending CVs. And we've done it because clients have told us that's what they want from us. We've done it because we've obeyed the instructions from our clients. Now, in one sense, that's not a bad thing. We're supposed to be providing service to our clients, but boy, has it dumbed down our ability to describe human beings. They're not something you can write about easily. They're flesh and blood. We're going to talk shortly about how digital recruitment is going to make it so much easier for us to be able to describe our candidates and increase our interview numbers and therefore our revenue opportunities. So for me, Analogue is all about this horrible position that the industry's got itself into. And in a sense, we haven't fought back hard enough, pushed back hard enough. And we are in this place where we are, to a large extent, and I know I work with lots of different recruitment companies all over the UK, we are CV messengers. It's not where we want to be. We often talk about trusted advisor positioning. And if we've done our work, we've been to meet our customers over and over again, we've developed a deep relationship, they will take our phone calls, they will answer our emails, they will take our advice and listen to our guidance. But for many, 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 many consultants, their stock in trade is sending CVs via email. I mean, it's about as dull as it could be. So I think we have an opportunity coming up now, we can talk about this, to get away from this horrible old-fashioned method of presenting human beings, moving much more into a multi-dimensional method of presenting our candidates.
So I look at that in an even bigger scale from a technology point of view, Paul, and look at how when I started in the early 90s that we had a Rolodex for candidates on one side of the desk. We had a Rolodex on the other side of the desk with clients in, and everyone sort of laughs about that Rolodex, and that Rolodex has now become our CRM, whatever CRM you're using. However, my Rolodex was alphabetized. It was skilled.
Big word.
So I could find everybody that I wanted to find in that. Behind me, I had filing cabinet, full of CVs, all skilled. So I could find them instantly and where I wanted to be instantly. And what we've time to do is we've done what is a technical term. We've done GIGO to our CRMs, and GIGO is garbage in, garbage out, because we've just placed lots of garbage into our CRMs, and we don't really get a great deal of information out of our CRM. The other side of that is what we talked about, is very much about how we have changed our style of recruitment. You're talking about we're now becoming CV messengers. I remember I was a contract guy, so I was always on the contract front. But I remember our perm guys coming back and saying, I've just signed a 25% deal with a client, and I've got a 10 grand budget up front. And what that 10 grand budget was, a 10 grand budget to put your advertisement into the Times, the Telegraph, Computer Weekly, etc. And we had agreements with the press already that we would get a 50% rate card reduction. So we already had out of that 10 grand, a 5 grand profit already sat on our books. And then obviously we've now started to do everything for free. We've started to do everything on a contingency basis. So there's very sort of little money in that sort of front unless you're winning the race constantly on recruitment. So there's things that's massively changed. And the fact that sort of people with, when we search, we go to a job board first, where it becomes first past the post. That has a knock-on effect that we're not using our CRM properly. Where before, what we had to do was we had to almost advertise. So if I got a contract job on a Thursday, I couldn't actually advertise that job for another Thursday, for another week, because a week would go past before the freelancing form would come out where you'd advertise all your contract jobs. So you had to do great amount of networking. You had to speak to candidates, you had to speak to clients constantly, rather than rely on technology to interact. Now, technology has created a lot of things that are really good in recruitment, but it's also stopped a lot of things that really sort of mean that we lack that control. And, I remember taking most of my contractors to their interviews, introducing them to the client, and the client would then interview the candidate, etc. So I felt I was in far more control than I was ever before. And that offer stage, again, it was very disjointed at that stage, where now the offer stage is almost it's non-emotional. There's no emotion involved in the interview stage. And so we're almost blind because everything's done via the phone or everything's done via email. And we become very blind to the situations. We're not connected enough to our candidates and clients. And like I say, I think there's an opportunity now to really sort of change that into the new world, and how the new world of recruitment can really sort of benefit from the things that have happened since COVID-19 have come in. So I think the next sort of question should be is, what do we need
before we get that chat, Howard, let me just let you know, because you can't see this. Natalie Judge has asked to put a hand in the air, so let me try and see if I can get Natalie to talk. Hold on, let's press this button. Natalie, can you hear us? Can you talk? Oh, no, it's not working. Let's try. All right, Natalie, would you like to write to us, and just, if you could undo your microphone, you look like you're muting your microphone. Are you able to do that up? Hello,
can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. How are you, Natalie?
Yeah, I actually put my hand up at the beginning of the call to say I was here, so apologies. It must be a bit delayed.
Okay, did you want to add anything at this point to our conversation?
Not at the moment, no. I think it's a bit delayed, but I am
Okay.
here. I am listening.
Great,
Thanks,
I'm glad
guys.
you're here. No problem at all. Okay.
Cheers.
Bit like taking register, I think, Natalie.
It is. I'll just add a few things to what you've just said, Howard, here. I think one of the other problems with what we call analog interviewing and analog recruitment is how long it takes, how long we end up having to wait to get deals over the line. And as a result, you know, we're waiting for people to call us back. We're waiting for the opportunity to arrange interviews. Whereas, as I was describing before, when I can have a conversation with my client, I can arrange interviews immediately. Our current situation means we're sending details through. It's taking time for things to be arranged. We're having to wait for people to call us back. It's a whole palaver, and it takes an awful long time, to the extent that very often this, as you often call it, time kills deals. I mean, the fact is that the longer the process takes, the more difficult the situation becomes for us. And as I say, we're going to be talking a bit further on about how we hope that, or in fact, we believe that we're going to have a situation where we can speed up the process. Bear in mind, of course, that great candidates are on the job market for a nanosecond. It's not just the fact that we need clients to come back quickly to give us interviews. It's the fact that we have to do that because they're on job boards, they're on social media, they're not waiting for us. So if our clients are slow to respond, which they often are, we lose the opportunity to assist candidates that we can place and make revenue from. So analog recruitment is also slowing down the process, slowing down the volume of deals we get, slowing down our ability to assist candidates when they seek our assistance. This dislocated approach is really a problem. The other thing I'd add is that the methods that are presently being used very often limit our emotional intelligence involvement. So our personalities are not allowed to flourish. And when I recruit candidate consultants to businesses I work with, I'm always looking for high emotional intelligence. Why do I want that? Because I want people who have that ability to influence others. There's something that you can't necessarily study at school or college or university. It's part of your personality, your DNA. I want those very strong personalities working in our businesses, people that are liked. The problem with our current situation is we're sitting behind a desk, behind a screen, we're sending details via email. It doesn't matter if you have the personality of a wooden box. The fact is that you can't use it in this current situation. Analog recruitment prevents you from using your high emotional intelligence, unless, as I always say, you obviously spend a lot of time each week getting out in front of clients, meeting candidates as well at the same time. So this is a problem with our current processes, and it has, if you like, squashed our ability to influence people. I'm very keen to hear what other people have got to say, because we've done a lot of talking so far. So I'm very keen to hear what other people have got to say. Is there anybody that would like to raise some questions at this point in time? Background noise here. Do you want to chat with us at this stage? Write a question or join in on the conversation?
I think a lot of people are probably in agreement there, Paul. And I think what we need to sort of do is sort of look at why. And I think that slide that we said that, what's led us to this situation now besides COVID-19. And I think that's what's led us to this situation is the passion that we all have about recruitment. But the fact that, all the people on this call here are managers or recruitment leaders. And as we've been saying for quite a number of years, is that what happens as you start to run a recruitment agency, that you do what is urgent, you don't do what is strategically important for the business. And by not doing things that are strategically important for the business, what happens is you stop driving your business forward and you start to do the same things over and over again. And when we go out and speak to clients constantly, the first thing we normally look at is what the company's mission statement actually is and how that mission statement links everyone together. And what's happened is technology over the years has really sort of driven that mission to become first past the post. And that is all about winning the deal and all about you as a recruiter rather than about the actual people that we're trying to help, which is our clients and our candidates. And so we have to start to think about what that has done with regard to dumbing us down with regards to our ability to interact with our clients and candidates in a proper way rather than actually interacting with them in a very personal and human touch. And I think we've got to think about that and what we do and how we sell that. And if you think about the perception of the recruitment market from those outside the marketplace, and I always say that, are you proud to go and tell your friends that you're a recruiter? If you met people on holiday, are you proud to say that you're a recruiter? And I mean, lots of recruiters say, well, not really, because we're seen as estate agents, we're seen as, this bit of a scourge. And I think the understanding is that what recruiters have done constantly is we've gone out and said to our clients and our candidates, don't work with that agency, they're not particularly good. Don't work with that agency, they're not particularly good. And yet we're doing the same, offering the same service and the same thing. And we go in and try and sell a service at 20% or 20% plus. The client says no, instantly drop our pants to 15%. And so we're then seen as the same as everybody else. So our clients and candidates sort of see us as cowboys, and we compound that view by what we put out on social media and what we do during the day, rather than actually being seen as a true relationship-based organization. And I think the big change that can happen here is being from that, transactional recruiter that's just about putting a ball in the seat, where it's all about me as the recruiter. I am the recruiter, I want to win, and therefore I am going to earn the money, rather than flipping that. And you think about the companies that when they really grew their market share, they grew it because it was all about their clientele, their candidates or their clients in this. If you look at, say, what Tesco's did, when Tesco's at one stage were taking 20 pence in every single pound spent in the UK was going into Tesco's pockets, it was all about the clientele walking in to a Tesco store. They put value propositions in front of them. They did everything that enabled the clientele to have the best experience possible. And when Tesco's changed, they changed when their old CEO left Tesco's. A new CEO came in, and his opening comment was all about the profit that the shareholders should be making out of Tesco's, which alienated the actual clientele of Tesco's, and therefore their share price actually started to drop. And I think what we've done over the last 10, 15 years is we've alienated our clients and our candidates because it's been all about the profit that we make. So we've now got an opportunity to really change that, and we can overcome that.
Howard, I'm just going to bring in Dave Hume, who raises a question here. Hi guys, how do you propose we overcome the silence of the current recruiting aspect, the CV shifters? How can the personalities show their personalities in this era we're in? So Dave, I'm going to try and bring you in. Let's see if we can do that. Can you hear us? Where are you, David? Okay, well, whilst I'm trying to hear it, talking permitted. Dave, can you hear us? Seems like you can. Can you join us? All right. We'll wait for Dave to come on. But perhaps, Howard, you could address that point. How do we overcome the silence of the current recruiting aspect, the CV shifters? How can personalities show their personalities?
Well, I think that goes into what we're going to talk about next absolutely hugely. And I think that goes into, what we're looking at now with regards to what we're classing as digital versus analog, and the difference between that and how we can make influence. And so if we sort of go back to what we talked about right at the beginning about what analog recruitment looks like, what we start to think about is what we can influence. And if we can start to influence by removing from being a CV shifter and look at things that we can do, then we can start to improve our CV to interview ratio, our interview to deal ratio, reduce our dropouts and counter offers, and ease onboarding and make tenure of the people we're actually recruiting into our clients longer, which overall reduces the cost of recruitment for our clients, which makes us seem to be a valued service. And I think it's by going into a client with purpose and showing genuine human intelligence.
Dave, can you hear us?
It's like I'm just on something.
Dave, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you, yes. We can.
Magic. Okay, fantastic.
Okay, so just fill us in with your question a bit more and give us your view of the situation.
Well, I'm interested because I think we've moved into a new era, and I've always been an advocate of the CV shifters just don't really have a place. They're not recruitment consultants. They're almost the agents, I think. I think there are different demographics, but I'm interested in there's so much talk around personal branding, podcasting, how you can demonstrate yourself as somebody of authority. And I think what's missing, you mentioned social media. I think there's a lot of recruitment companies, a lot of recruitment consultants struggle with any strategy whatsoever for what they post, for example, on LinkedIn. I think of many people post for the sake of posting. What I'm interested in is how do you get that? I thought it was really interesting what you said before, Paul, about how do you get the personalities to share their personalities in a most effective way that's going to make them either the dominant recruiter, either in the company or in their space. There's so much talk around podcasts. There's so much talk around video. I see, as I'm sure we all do, so many horrific examples, and we're all learning. So, nobody gets it right. And there's some great examples, but there's many tragic ones. What do you propose is the way? What would you speak to your consultants? Because there's two layers. You've got the company message, and then you've got the individual recruiter. So how do they get those personalities off to be seen as adding that value? And what is the value proposition that's different from the olden days, let's say?
Okay. Well, look, I think one of the big challenges has always been that we've got to get our consultants and indeed ourselves out in front of our clients far, far more than we have done. I think what, in a sense, technology has done over the last 5-10 years has made us lazy as an industry. We don't get out in front of our clients anywhere near as often as we should do. Sometimes geographically, that's extremely difficult. If you're a business that works nationally, going out and meeting clients is obviously not that easy. Back in my day when I was working in so-called high street recruitment, all of my clients were within a few minutes walk of my office, so that wasn't so difficult. But I think, we're going to talk about in a moment what the technology that we have available to us now enables us to do is that we can be in front of people as we are right now. I mean, you can see me, which is straightforward. It's fairly easy. If we wanted to, and you wanted us to, we could see you too. And we need to make more of our personalities by using technology. Social media is great, and you can make a lot of noise on social media. You can become a voice on social media. But the truth is that it's not a substitute for face-to-face meetings. What we know about building face-to-face meetings is you develop trust. You develop what we call this trusted advisor position. I always tell the people I work with, it's easy to get other meetings before you leave a client. You just arrange another appointment, another review meeting before you actually leave the meeting. And therefore, you've got this constant situation of review meetings every 3 months or so, building more and more trust. And what we know, and you know this as well, Dave, is that when you develop those relationships, working closely with clients, being in a position where they'll take your phone calls, that will enable you to start getting more interviews and developing that trusted advisor positioning. And I think the new technology, which we can talk about in a moment, is really going to transport us into that new era, that ability to develop those opportunities.
I think to add to that, Dave, one of the things I speak to all my clients about constantly is the 5 Ps: pitch, profile, publicize, product, and partnership. And what I mean by that is that you should be able to pitch your business within 2 minutes to any candidate or any client, and that client be enthused by your business and actually can see the differentiator of that. And then to jump into your social media sort of comment there, and how do you get people to sort of really sort of show your personality? Your social media profile is really important. So how you publicize yourself on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, etc. is really key. And I've been saying for the last 3 or 4 years, there's a digital wave coming, and unless you ride that digital wave, then it's going to hit the shore at some point. And if you're sat on the shore, you're going to get washed away. So you've got to think that what a client will do is when they look at your profile, they'll look at your profile and they'll look at you on LinkedIn, they'll try to search you on Twitter, they'll try to search you on Facebook, Instagram, etc. And what they want to see is a brand all the way across. So that's your company brand and your individual brand message, matching each other. And so they see the uniformity of what's going on. If you think about Coca-Cola, everywhere you go, you can see Coca-Cola. It doesn't matter whether it's on a bottle, whether it's on a can, whether it's on a billboard. You see what's going on and you understand the product straight away. So it's the same thing here. It's about recognition as you're going through. But what I find is what most recruiters do is they post constantly just purely jobs. And if they're not posting jobs, and they think what's a great idea is to post things about how to pass an interview, what interview questions that you should ask, how to write a CV. But when you think about your marketplace, and I always say this as a sort of throwaway line, is if you walked into a pub and said, right, tell me in this pub now who's a candidate and who's a client, and tell me who's on the job market, you can't tell who they are. And that's exactly the same as when you walk into social media. So if you're only advertising your jobs, then how much of your market are you actually divorcing yourself from your advertising campaign? They say between 10 and 15% of people are only looking for a job at any one time, and that's obviously going to change a little bit from COVID-19. But if that's the case, then you're divorcing yourself from 85% of your marketplace. So you need to be putting things into your marketplace that everyday things or everyday people are interested in, but then think about the niche that you're in. So if you're in an IT niche, you'd be thinking about the IT things that you're putting out. If you're in normal niches, what other niches, things that you can put out that are interesting to candidates and clients and would allow those people to see you as an influencer in the marketplace. You're helping them get past their normal everyday thing. And that includes doing videos. I've got clients that do video of the week, a candidate of the week. They do job spec of the week. They do all sorts of different things of what's going on. But then they also do, I've got other clients who are doing news, and they're doing broadcasts of news of what's going on in their marketplace. And they're getting quite a large following from that. And that news is either through a podcast, through a video, but that's all about creating their personal brand. And what that does is when you think about what you publicize, it's really important because the publicizing of those things brings the product to you. And the product is your candidates and your clients. So when you call your candidate and your client, the client should be picking up the phone and going, I've never actually spoken to you before, but I've heard of you, because constantly all your social media advertising is prod. They see you on a daily basis. And then when they answer the phone, they know who you are. Not personally, but they know of your business. They know exactly what you do. And the other side of that is if you then start to attach yourself with influencers within your marketplace of what's going on within your marketplace, then other people want to then get on that journey with you because they feel they want to be part of that person that's having that mission and working on that mission. So if one of your big people within the marketplace is answering some of your posts, or you're tagging them in their posts and they're coming back to you, then other people see that you are linked with the influencers. And therefore, what it means is you have a bigger spread within the marketplace. So personal branding and podcasting and things like that are really important. But what you've got to understand is that there are, advertising can make you, it can also break you. I do believe there was an agency back in 2018 that thought it'd be a great idea to video and film their agency's winners trip. And they made it a Wolf of Wall Street. Here they are drinking champagne in the office. Here they are on a private jet going to Amsterdam. Here they are getting absolutely smashed out of their brains in Amsterdam. And the video got around about 3.5 million hits. The business was out of business 3 months later because all their clients decided they didn't want to work with them because of the way they portrayed themselves. So although it got a massive amount of hits on LinkedIn, etc., it destroyed their business. So what you put out is really important. And if you want to keep putting out things that says that you're a cowboy, then constantly our clients are going to think we're a cowboy. If you're putting out things that are solid information about the marketplace, which helps your clientele, which are your candidates and your clients, bypass that and see that you are helping them and influencing them, then they'll come back to you more and more, because you're seen then as a person of influence, a key person of influence. And I think that KPI is really important, key person of influence rather than key performance indicator, because if you're the key person of influence in the marketplace, then your key performance indicators will suddenly change and you'll start to increase the revenue that you get from each candidate and each client from there. Dave,
does that answer your question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly. Does that answer your question?
Well, it kind of doesn't. It doesn't. I'm hugely involved in the inbound side of things, and I completely respect the personal branding and how you attract the candidates. So is that the answer then? I suppose. Are we looking for the personalities that are able to deliver a marketing perspective to grow their personal brand? What's interesting for me is, I do agree on pretty much everything that you said there, and we're well aware of how to be the hunted as opposed to the hunter anymore. I was interested in this new era where we are getting away from the traditional methods, and I'm 20 years or coming up to 20 years as a recruiter, specialist headhunter, and I am proud to tell people that's what I do. But if we are now going into this era that you're talking about, are we talking more face-to-face visits and a better social media brand? Is that the answer for the new era? Is that what you're suggesting is the way forward?
Well, let's segue into talking about this new era, because I think what we've got through this current crisis has been a fast track into the new era. I think we are presently talking via Zoom, and it's not too difficult. What we know, I think, if the manufacturers ever needed a period of time for these platforms to finesse their products, they've certainly got one now. And I think we'll come out of this with more sophisticated technology. The platforms will improve. Some of the issues that we've had in the past will disappear. And I think, keep in mind that as we go back to work, hopefully fairly soon now, candidates and clients are going to be very reluctant to meet each other still. Whilst we still have social distancing, which is viewed as something that's going to carry on for some period of time, probably most of this year, we're going to struggle to get people to meet each other. So I think we're going to be using these video platforms prolifically. I think they're going to be used a great deal. And I think when we come out of this awful crisis, what was a stopgap measure to get people to meet and talk to each other will become the norm. I think all recruitment businesses will be using video platforms to introduce candidates to clients, clients to candidates. And I think we, as personalities, this come back to your point, Dave, will be much more exposed. The people that we will want to engage in our businesses will have personalities that are capable with coping in terms of preparing candidates for interviews. We'll be looking at media training to some extent for our people so that they perform well on these video platforms, that they're able to coach and train candidates. They'll be able to coach and support clients. They'll be hosting these type of events. We'll be introducing candidates online. We'll participate in the interview panels, the interview processes. I think this will drive us towards more exclusive opportunities. As a headhunter, I'm assuming very often you work on an exclusive retained basis. Most recruitment businesses, of course, work on contingent basis. I think that we have an opportunity by offering added value services to be driving our industry far more into exclusivity and retained opportunities. And these kind of platforms, as they become more sophisticated, as we become more adept at using them, and we coach and train our own people to use these kind of platforms very successfully, I think that will drive us towards basically ensuring that we end up with far more opportunities to work very closely with our organizations, to the extent that our personalities become a very important criteria in developing these trusted advisor positions.
Do you think the standards will increase because of that? Because you won't necessarily get some of the ones that are great at writing an email. Do you think the standard of recruiters will go up?
I think the standard of recruiters has to improve, mainly because your interaction is going to be so much more with the outside world, and via Zoom, via interview, Odro, etc., all these sort of processes, then you're going to have to be better at actually dealing with your candidate and dealing with your client to actually increase your opportunity. And I see the transactional recruiter and your everyday recruiter moving more and more towards that headhunter type marketplace and that search type marketplace than ever before, where they are transactional. They are more about the product and the service to their clients. And I see the actual level of, or sort of not the level, the quality of recruitment stepping up levels instantly because of it. Because if you think about what's happening, and everyone talks about Zoom videos and all these type of things, because people can now see you, then you have to act with them in a very, very different way. And if you think Morabian's law was 55% of all conversations is all about your body language, then you've got to think about what that looks like when you come to video. And I've always said that, from a personal background, that I played a reasonable level of rugby, and we were on the telly a reasonable amount of time back in the early 90s. And it was quite interesting that we were sent on media training, how to purvey ourselves on the media. And a lot of people have got to think about what they look like on video, what they talk to people like on video, the facial expressions, catch words, and you'll get certain keywords that you use constantly. There'll be lots of and it's interesting when you talk to footballers that haven't gone through a great deal of media training. If you think about when David Beckham first came out and Wayne Rooney, they could hardly string a sentence together without putting 25 in the middle of that conversation all the way through. You look at them now when they've been through lots of media training, it doesn't happen like that. So it massively improves. So we're going to have to really work on our visual content and how we perceive ourselves with our clients and with our candidates over video, because we're going to be doing a lot more interviewing over video. We're going to be a lot more job specification over interview. And if you think about what we can actually use for the interview to start to pull back control and differentiate ourselves from our client base, there's lots of things that we can do, and what Paul and I want to go on to talk about, that we can do via video that puts us further in control of the recruitment process, but also means that our quality of our recruitment process has to improve. And it's a really sort of I think a dynamic change, and I've been talking about this over the last 2 or 3 years about this digital wave and how it will change the way that we do recruitment. But what happens is that you've got to enable the client to see that change and see the value in that change. And what COVID-19 is, it's brought that change to the forefront of every single business, every single client, and every single employee, because they're now all using that video technology, and that's now become their norm. So what we think was an advantage, I'm doing video technology, now becomes the norm. So it's what you do on that video and what you do during that process, which then steps up a level. And unless you step up a level, then you're just going to do the same as everybody else, and we'll go back to being transactional recruiters, just doing it over video. And so there's a very big difference now where we can make giant strides into recruitment market. And my crusade is, can we move away from being contingent recruiters to more paid recruiters and paid on the service that we do? And I think there's an opportunity now to really do that by having purpose and value. And what video technology does for us and digital technology does for us, it gives you that opportunity to add purpose and value to your client, which will differentiate your service from those transactional recruiters who will not change what they do other than adding a video process into it. Paul, you're on mute. Paul, you're on mute.
Okay, so Howard. So what I'd like to add to your comments really are something very important here, that I think we've got an opportunity, as you've just discussed, to move away from being one of many, being in the pack, by using the technology, which as I've already said is going to get more and more sophisticated as time moves on. And I think we have this opportunity to and to come back to Dave's point, to utilize and apply our emotional intelligence so that we develop these trusted advisor positions. But if you think through the use of the video methodologies, we've got this brilliant chance now to, for example, send video CVs to clients. We have this, do video clips of our candidates. Obviously, there's an issue here around privacy and so forth. We'll overcome that, but we can do that instead of sending printed CVs. We have a chance to take job specifications face to face, no matter where the client is in the UK or abroad. We can do that very easily. Again, exercising our personalities, our emotional intelligence. As I've said already, we can host interviews. We are in a position, of course, where I think we can exercise our salesmanship, if you like, because I think that these processes enable us to have a more influence over, for example, closing placements, negotiating fee levels, negotiating salaries, convincing candidates, if that's the expression, to consider taking a role. Our level of influence improves, because what we're doing here is we're not only using our voice, but we're also visually apparent to clients and candidates. That, of course, is going to increase our ability to develop these relationships. And come back to my earlier point, right now, most recruitment businesses send out emailed CVs. We send out written, as it were, but digitally sent profiles. There's no personality involved in that whatsoever. Here, because of what's going on today and what I've already said will segue into the new world of work, is this brilliant opportunity to use our personalities to work as that individual that goes between the two parties, to work as the facilitator, not just in terms of, as I said, verbally, but also very visibly. I think this is great, and I believe that when we start looking for new consultants to be used to joining our businesses, and we're looking at our existing consultants in terms of upskilling, we're going to be looking a great deal about their ability to influence people through visual methods, through verbal methods. And this, I think, in a bizarre way, takes me back 35, 40 years ago to when my personality and the personalities of the people around me made such a significant difference to the level of revenues and profits we were making. We're now moving away from that position of purely using emailing, or not purely, but largely using emailing to try to communicate with our clients and candidates, to a position where we're going to a whole nother level. And, we're looking at technology that we have present today. What will the technology look like in 3, 5, 10 years' time? Significantly better than the things we're using today. We'll almost laugh at the things we have to use today in 5 years' time. So this has taken us to a different place. It's taken us to a different opportunity. We're coming out of we'll be coming out of an awful crisis, and using the lessons that we've had to take on board during this period to improve our business models going forward. And I think this gives us a terrific opportunity.
I think I look at that in an even bigger way than that, Paul, and I think technology becomes a forefront of that. And I think about going back and taking job specs face to face with clients, even on a contract job spec, taking job specs face to face on clients. And I preferred that than doing it over the phone, because I got far more information and far more in depth. If you think now, you could use, say, a Dropbox, and we can create Dropbox technology in your own system, so you could actually have secure portals for each individual client and each individual candidate. If you videoed your job specification with your client, and you look at the client's how the client performs during that job specification, how animated they are about the job, how they sell the company, then when you bring a candidate in and you talk about the job specification, you can then allow them access to the Dropbox and say, right, now look at the video of the client talking about the job. So again, you're now connecting people very, very quickly about the job. You're also then starting to think about what we do with that interview process. So we can now start to send 2-minute short elevator pitches of candidates to the client, and the client can see the candidate there and then. How many times have we sent a candidate to a client on paper that looks absolutely brilliant, and then the client rings you up after an hour's interview and says, I just didn't like the person. And when did you discover that? After 2 minutes of the interview, I just didn't like the person, so I'm never going to take him. They can now negate that straight away from that video if they don't like them. And I think that's a great selling point, that you can then take that candidate straight out of the recruitment process, which means that your interview to offer ratio massively improves, because they're not going to be interviewing candidates they don't want to interview. The big thing I always think about hosting interviews is that if you're hosting the interview and you're in the interview either with the client and with the candidate, either face-to-face on the client side or now via video, you're in far more control because you can get feedback instantly. So if you think about now through video interview, rather than letting the candidate and the client interview themselves, if you are then introducing the client and the candidate and actually either staying on the video for a period of time and then coming back at the end, you can then start to see how the client performs. You can start to see how the candidate performs, which means that you can start to absolutely control the video process. Once you come out of that video process, you can then go back into the candidates that are coming into the next interview, and you can pre-warn what type of questions the client's going to be asking, what they're doing, etc. So you now become far more controlling within the interview process. A big thing that we sort of find is when candidates and clients, there's always that little bit of distrust, and we come to make that offer process. Doing an offer, so videoing the offer from the candidate and videoing the offer from the client, means that there is no ambiguity. It also means if you get a really good offer from a candidate, you can send that to the client and the client will be really pleased by that. But you can also use that in a real sales way. If a candidate rejects an interview and rejects the interview for genuine reasons that the client would normally say, I don't believe that, that's rubbish, etc., etc., then now the power of sending that interview to the client, as long as you have the candidate's express permission to do that, can be really powerful as a sales tool. So I think there's a lot more things that we can think about, and I'm just skirting the surface here. There's a lot more things that we can think about to do that.
Howard, can I just bring in, I've got Jim Roach and I've got Karen Deep also who wants to get involved in this conversation. So I'm going to bring Jim in.
Yeah.
Jim, can you hear us?
Good morning, chaps.
Hello,
Listeners out there. Yeah, to be fair, since I put my hand up, Howard started saying all the things I want to say. So
Sorry, Jim.
I know we're all on the same page, except in terms of numbers of burpees we might be expecting to do. We'll get onto that another time. The overarching thing I wanted to get across is that, yeah, we're all going to do video interview now. Tick that box. Yeah, of course we can do video interview, Mr. Client. But what you're saying is absolutely right. We need to improve our process. How contingent recruitment agencies work is rubbish. And I've talked to Paul about this. I think it's our fault. He disagrees. But we go along with the way that clients expect to recruit. You know, we send them CVs, they sit on them for an age. They then eventually come back to us and say, yeah, we'd like to see some. And we tell them that the best ones have already gone. And that's how our process goes along. Too often, not all the time. Some of us, manage to do it better than that some of the time. But we've got a massive opportunity now, because we're moving to this next new world of work, whichever way you want to put it, to say, look, we can't go back to that slow, inefficient way of doing contingent recruitment. We have to do it better. Partly because I firmly believe that if we're actually going to survive in the new era, we're going to have to get business happening quicker. We're going to have to get our success rates way higher. I think a good contingent recruiter would probably fill 1 in 3 on average, more like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5. That's not really other industries would probably think that's awful, that we succeed 1 in 3, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 times. We know that search and select is far higher, it's closer to 1 in 1. We need to be getting our services more in line with that level of quality. However we put the package together, the key is let's get our whole recruitment industry and our whole recruitment systems better.
I couldn't agree more, Jim. I think, we've got this unbelievable opportunity coming up very soon to review the way we look at our processes, the methods in which we present candidates, that we communicate with clients. And it's been there forever anyway. I mean, you and I have spoken many times about using technology to improve our processes. As you pointed out, your view is perhaps the industry has allowed itself to be bullied in a sense to minimize the quality of the service that we've provided. But now, of course, I think that what we're going through and as we come out of this, we can, I think, and you've said this and I agree with you, we can push back. The good news here is that we're going to increase the quality of the service level we provide clients. We certainly want to be pushing, as we've been saying, towards more exclusive opportunities, retained opportunities. As we've been saying, retained opportunities gives us a chance to remodel our pricing. We should be looking, I'm sure Dave would agree with this, our earlier contributor, to getting at least a third of the fee levels up front, so that we're not working for nothing. I mean, one of the daft things about our industry has always been that we are a no-win, no-fee industry. How many roles do we all work on that come to absolutely nothing? Our percentage fill rate on vacancies registered to placements made is not high. On this new technology, the new opportunities we have to use technology will increase, if we're skilled and we're skillful, our chance to work much more closely with our clients, push towards more retained and exclusive opportunities. It improves the quality of the service we give to our clients. It gives us the chance to put better candidates in front of them at a quicker pace. We can arrange interviews early in the morning, late in the afternoon, early evening, when it suits people, when they can work and talk to each other in the privacy of their own homes. We can then add on other things. We can add on psychometric testing, for example. All of these things are things we need to be doing, and the client benefits from a far better quality of service than we've been providing before. Why has this happened? It's happened because of this awful crisis. It's pushed us into a situation where, coming out of this, we are now forced, in a sense, to provide this service we've always wanted to provide. So whilst nobody ever wanted this situation, and clearly it is truly appalling, there will be some good coming out of it by way of improving the service levels that we provide as an industry to our client base, which I think is precisely what you've been saying, isn't it, Jim?
I think there's a bigger answer to that as well, Jim. I think the big key word that has, the big key thing that's going to come out of this situation is the mental and physical well-being of the human race, because everyone has sort of tuned into the mental and physical well-being of everybody within their marketplaces and how you do that. And if you start to talk about clients and thinking the mental stress the client is under when they can't recruit or they're recruiting slowly, think of the stress that puts the candidate under and the recruiter under, etc. So if they want to improve their recruitment processes, then they've got to improve how they interact with people, and that's everybody working on that sort of front. And I think there's a big opportunity there to work on that you're talking about the well-being of how your client is perceived. And how many candidates do you talk to about, I'm not speaking to that client because we never hear anything, and that anxiety, you can almost hear that anxiety in the candidate's voice of that, but that's caused client's slow process and caused by their poor recruitment process. And we have to identify that and start to go back to clients with a genuine open view of, look, if you want to improve how you're perceived by the marketplace, then improve your recruitment process, and that will reduce the mental stress that recruitment actually causes. And it's a big stress to a lot of clients and a lot of candidates. So I think there's a huge opportunity to actually do that and change how that is done right across the marketplace. So I think there's a great opportunity there.
Howard,
and how much does it cost?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing at all.
Nothing whatsoever. Jim, thank you.
Thank you.
We're running out of time, so I've got Karen Deep, who's been waiting to talk to us. Let me just allow her to come on. Him, sorry. Karen Deep, can you hear us? Are you there? I think you're.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. It was, I've obviously typed a question out, but it was going back to what Howard was saying earlier about the fact that you can use video technology to increase efficiency. An example being that you said that, you know, you can end up interviewing somebody for an hour, but in the first minute of that interview deciding you don't like them. I was actually challenged by my MD about that, saying, is video technology an effective use there? Because you've got unconscious bias, but sometimes you get instances where initial, I guess, interaction makes you think, I don't like this person, but because you spend that little bit more time with them, you start to warm to them, and suddenly you think, actually, do you know what? My initial thoughts that I had in the first 5 minutes
We're wrong.
Are wrong.
Yeah.
Is there a way of balancing using video technology, which I agree is a really good, strong thing that we need to integrate, but using it in a way that you're not completely pushing unconscious bias to have somebody out of the process?
I think it's an improvement over the current situation, to be honest, Karen Deep. I think you've got a situation now where we send many instances CVs, and we've been discussing this all for the last hour, hugely impersonal. It gives no depth to an individual's personality. We know, I mean, as you rightly say, subconscious bias is always there. You have to ask yourself, do we have a better chance of arranging interviews, getting people to spend time with each other using video versus using that awful one-dimensional method of sending CVs? And whilst I think that there will be fault and still some subconscious bias issues with videoing, I believe that the conversion ratio, to your point, so will be higher. So if I initially see somebody and my initial subconscious reaction is, I don't like this person makes me feel uncomfortable, I'm not sure I want to work with this person, because I'm professional, I'll spend a bit more time talking to them just to understand and be conscious of the fact that that subconscious bias may be blurring my judgment. So I think that what I think video will do is extend that period of doubt. Your clients will ask more questions. And as you've said, and I think we've all experienced this, when you get to speak to somebody for a period of time, then you begin to change your perspectives. The thing is, at least we're giving people a chance to do that. Whereas presently, sending CVs doesn't. All they do is they look at a CV, our clients, and they go, no, I don't fancy this person. But the ridiculous thing is, we as professionals spend a huge amount of time talking to candidates, going through CVs, improving CVs. We then send them to our clients and give them a chance to second judge the quality of the CVs. We know what we're doing. We know whether the candidates are a good fit. And now we're allowing clients to make that judgment based on what I keep calling a piece of paper. Videoing has got much more depth to it. I think it's a great chance to have a filter interview. So you could set up, say, you could have a beauty parade, pardon the expression. So you could put 5 candidates in front of clients during a period of, say, an hour and a half, giving each person 10, 15 minutes. You could compose with your client a set of questions. You could sit in on that interview panel if you've got exclusivity. After 10, 15 minutes of this filter interview, you do a quick mop-up. And at the end of that, say, 5 interview process, you talk to your client about which 2 or 3 they want to formally interview. Whether they do that face-to-face or we have a formal interview via video, that's a choice to be made. But at least that 10 to 15 minute moment, as it were, that period where your candidate has an opportunity to impress the client, and we'll be coaching them through that before they go on the video interview, will be significantly better than sending a CV via email. So I agree. I think there's bound to be some fault with this method of promoting and pushing forward candidates, but it will still be a whole lot better than the world we live in today, which is sending hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of CVs via emailing and waiting for clients to sit on them and make judgments when they're not in the same profession that we're in, and they don't necessarily make the right judgments. As we know, we get very frustrated by that.
I think there's a bigger side to that as well, Karen, but with regards to not just video technology, but how we interact with the client and how we interact with the client. And if you start to think about, you know, behavioral testing, etc., etc., if you're doing proper behavioral testing with your client on what the client is actually looking for, And then you're putting your candidate through that behavioral test. You're providing the test, you're providing a video to the client. The client's getting a far more in-depth understanding of that candidate. Now, that test might cost you 50 quid to run, but that 50 quid might be a whole difference between making a placement of 25% than making a placement at 15%. And the difference in that 10% is huge when it comes to cash. So you start to think about the value that you add to your client and the service that you add to your client. The other side to that, we talked about technology and how technology can become a game changer. There's technology out there that you can start to actually interrogate your CRM. So it can actually start to strip down to your CRM of what people actually want, do, etc. So you can have that back to my Rolodex days where I knew exactly what salary people wanted, what they were, what capabilities they had, etc. So instantly I can pick the right people out of my CRM and go to my client straight away. So I can really evaluate and have a deep probe into my CRM to find out what the value of my CRM is. Hence then I'm reducing my cost and my reliability on job boards, and I'm driving purpose into my business. It also means if I'm talking to my candidates on a regular basis, when I come to my client and I'm saying, right, here's a video, let me talk you through the video, let me go through that. As Paul was saying, you have so much more passion and power to actually sell to your client than before. And the difference between that transactional recruiter is that the passion is about them making a placement, where the relationship-based recruiter that will come in the future is all about putting the right person in front of that client for the good of the client and the good of the candidate. And they understand that by doing that, then your big driver will be about making the final placement, which is for you. So if you think client, candidate first, then you, then company, then all of a sudden you get a very different thing. And if I look at all the recruiters that I've worked with who are brilliant recruiters, high six figures, some into the seven-figure recruiters, they have all been about the person at the end of the phone, not about them. Their earnings was a byproduct of what they were doing, not their sole driver. And there's a very big difference when you start to change from being transactional into that type of marketplace, because it changes all your KPIs, it changes your view of the marketplace and what's going on within the marketplace. So I think technology has a massive role to play in the way that we change our recruitment and the way recruitment is changing. And if we start to think about technology and use technology properly, then what you're going to find, if we put technology at the bed of our recruitment process, then everything means that we can spend more time speaking to our clients and more time speaking to our candidates, rather than spending time creating things and doing things and becoming keyboard warriors. And I worked 2 or 3 years ago with a company and won an award through Bullhorn by embedding Bullhorn at the center of my recruitment world. And basically all the recruiter had to do was sit into Bullhorn and they could do absolutely everything, including video technology, into there, by creating one operating system where they don't have to leave that. And what we found was it speeded up our recruitment time, it increased our time that we were speaking to candidate and clients, and it hugely drove from filling 2 out of 10 jobs to filling 7 out of every 10 job that they placed. It took their CV interview ratio from 1 to 4 to 3 to 4, and it took their placement ratio to almost 1-on-1. And so there's a huge change from where they were to where they are now. And that's all the technology that's available now was available then, but we put it and embedded it into the systems and made the recruiters understand how it worked. And I think that's the big change. Is training recruiters how to recruit is one thing, but training them how to interact with the market is the bigger thing. And that's what the difference will be, is if we start to train our recruiters to how they interact with the market and how they use these tools properly and train them properly. And this doesn't mean just let's go on a 2-day training course and then throw you to the wolves and say, off you go build me a 200K. It is, let's train you on individual bits, slowly. Let's improve your skills slowly. Usain Bolt didn't run 9.5 seconds the first time he started athletics. Over a period of time, he's created that by training and developing. And that is what we need to be doing. Transactional recruiters, when I go meet them, their training process is very, very weak. It isn't an everyday occurrence. I go find the recruitment agencies that are huge and making lots and lots of money. They are training constantly their staff. And there's a big difference. By training your staff and embedding the basics in them and the core basics, it creates mental well-being, as well as creating a vision and a drive for the business that creates money. So there's lots of things. At this topic, we could talk for hours and hours about this topic.
Actually, Howard, sadly, we've run out of time. It's 12:05 now. There's just one last comment here from Dave Hume. He says, we adopted Odro 3 years ago as a game changer. We utilised everything Howard said. We recruit faster, saving clients time and money. Fees and exclusive have increased. You get to demonstrate your authority and expertise, and COVID has been an opportunity to get close to clients and candidates. It's an exciting time, and bless Milo for saying it had to run, but thank you for an excellent session again, and thanks for joining us, Milo. So sadly, we have reached the end of our 1 hour slot, but we thank all of you for joining us today. Howard, I think we've got some interesting subjects to discuss next week at the same time too.
We have indeed. And what I'll say to everybody that's listening, if you want to come and talk to Paul and I about how to implement these things and how to drive these things, then we're available 24/7 to talk to you guys and help you in this period, to get through this period. And I think it's important that as recruiters, if you truly want to make a difference moving forward,